I want to make sure that we give a shout out to the Fieldstone Memory Care folks because they are sponsoring something to talk about Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Yeah.
Great.
They offer innovative and compassionate care on Rolling Bay. They have some beautifully appointed apartments. And if you are interested in checking them out, or if you know somebody who might be, the phone number to call to make an appointment is 360-689-4314. And they're great folks. Give them a call. Today, we are going to be talking about writing with our memoir and what should we call you, Venera? Our Joanne of the deep dive.
Okay.
You like that?
Yeah. Yeah. It made me a little taller, I noticed.
That's right. So thank you, Venera, for joining us. We are looking forward to having a little discussion about the idea of love letters to oneself as well as to one's family. And so I'm looking forward to chatting with you about that.
Great.
You have written more than one book. And so you have a little experience with this diving deep.
Yeah.
You wrote Marriage, Kidneys, and Other Dark Organs as a memoir, and then a novel, I believe.
A novel, a psychological novel, blah, blah. They was holding hands. I can hardly remember it myself. Yeah.
And I see that you are well appointed for the day with earrings with hearts.
Yes, they're hearts and the red. And I put lipstick on because that's what I would do anyway. And did a little research on love.
Okay.
That I thought I'd do first. And then talk about writing.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
That sounds like a wonderful idea, doesn't it?
Yeah. I wanted to find out what it is about love that we make such a big deal about it, and I certainly have felt it in my life, and I hope all of you have felt it. But the questions that were asked were kind of interesting. Why love is important, and why and what is it important? How does it become important? Anyway, if you don't mind me looking at my notes, because I tend to blow it every time I try to do it.
I think it's a good idea to keep track of where you are.
Thank you. So there's 7 reasons that I read about that let you know why. The majority of texts in any language, a period of time, region, and combinations there have been written on love. And never seems that we have covered every aspect of the incredible feelings. So it's been described as an emotion, a way of life, and even as the most important thing there is. While there are many facets and faces of love, we're going to focus on what is traditionally romantic love today. Here are 7 reasons why love is important and what you can do to find yours. We hope they're right. So, all right, so anyway, it connects you with other human beings, for one thing. That was number 1. Hi, Lawrence. This may seem trivial, but it has been the key to functioning of society as a whole for the last 5,000 years. The ability to have the affectionate and intimate connection with another person, and to have that fondness returned in an anchor to base the rest of your development and future around. Anyone have questions, please stop me and I will stop. Number 2, Why is love important? The path to self-discovery. Love can reveal a lot about ourselves that we may not have already known. Our preferences, our tastes, morality, thought processes, and instinctive reactions when we are in love reveal a lot about our character to ourselves upon reflection, especially considering that we are in situations where we may never have been before. When you fall in love, everything changes inside of you. You focus differently, you think about what that person expects from you, or you want to give to that person. All of a sudden, you're connecting right away. So the best-selling author, Noah Elkreef, answers the question, what is the meaning of love? Love is complete acceptance. It is emotional unconditional love, and it's selfless. Now, we don't have to agree with anything anyone says. We can make up our own decisions on love. And who has a better idea about it, I'd like to hear it.
So Sada, you had your hand up briefly.
Yes, I do. Can you hear me? Do I have my mute on?
We hear you, we
I
don't
just
see you.
And I don't hear well on this.
Okay, you don't have to see. I'll do that. I'm not, should I take notes on this? Or will you send this? Will you send your notes, please, later?
Oh, yeah, we are recording this, so we'll make sure that you have this later for sure.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay,
You're
I'll go back
welcome.
to being quiet. Thanks.
Anyone else? Well, let me then give you another one. Why is it important? Why is love important? It's an excellent source of motivation. Remember when you were in love that you felt like a hero and you felt good and you would do anything for these people that you fell in love with. You always tend to strive for better, and not just in a vain sense either. That is to say, it's not merely for the sake of your partner loving you more, though that certainly it is a motivation, but also do better in life, set new goals, generally strive for the best. The upswing is positive and thoughts are noticeable, and that itself makes a big difference. I'm not great at these kinds of notes, so I like thought is great.
Well, let's just say a little bit about that. Do you think that that kind of striving is, as you said, not just vanity or self-interest, but there's kind of an energy that that gets you to extend yourself in ways that that you might not otherwise?
I think so, because when I look at someone that I really admire, I find them enhancing, and they make me feel different. I think differently. I open up a lot. I give of myself more. Does anyone else ever feel that way? I see one head bob. I like that. Jan, you feel that way?
I see a couple other hands. Yes.
Who was it?
Raise your hand.
Is that... Oh, good to see you. Speak up.
Well, I think it definitely makes you, you're inspired, and it's so different from an external. It's internal, And it's this desire, this yearning to create a, a, a space, or create create a life, but that's intimate, that it makes you just want that intimacy, not just physical intimacy, but the intimacy of knowing somebody's heart, knowing what somebody thinks, knowing what somebody feels. And it also, from the inside, sort of promotes you to be better, promotes you to be a better person.
Bonnie's right on target on that one, as I feel it. Intimacy is so important in our lives. We think it's just for a sexual thing. It is not. Intimacy, you need that intimacy. You need to want to know that person you're with. You need to know the pain or the love or the hate, whatever exists in that human.
Yeah.
And when we know that, we are not afraid of them ever as easily. We throw away fears a lot with them. At least that's how I see people. Anyone wanna say? Yes.
Lori, you need to unmute. There you go.
Yeah, I agree about how love makes you a different person. And I'm going to come at this from the point of view of caregiving. I was a caregiver for my husband, and more recently for my son. And I think if you are a caregiver for someone and you don't have love, it's very difficult. It's I won't say it's impossible, but it's more like a duty, which is the way
Yes.
I approached it initially with my husband. He was at Island Health and Rehab, and he had dementia. And I just felt like it was a one-way street. I was giving. And then suddenly, after some time, I realized he was giving back. I just had to be open to that, to see all the gifts that he was giving me back.
Oh.
And at that point, I think my caregiving was more infused with love than duty. There was a little bit of both, but I just think that the kinds of things that are demanded of you as a caregiver, it's very hard to do it if you don't have love in your heart. And there's this wonderful saying by Somerset Maugham. He said, when love and duty are one, then grace is within you.
Wow.
And that's kind of how I felt when I finally got my head screwed on correctly as a caregiver. So.
Well, what you're saying, Lori, is something that it doesn't happen like it isn't a light switch. It isn't
Yes.
like I mean, it sounds like it took some fake it till you make it a little bit with
Yes.
you.
Definitely a process. Yes. Quite right, Reed.
You know what you just said, Reed, fake it till you make it. That is, as I feel it. Ever since I was a young girl, I needed to fake it in order to make it. Because all I could see is people were comfortable within their skin and I was uncomfortable. And so what was I going to do but to reach out to people and then what? Make a fool of myself? So I had to make a make-believe thing until it became real. And when it became real, I didn't need that crutch anymore. But I do believe that's what we need in life. That's how we need to communicate with people.
Yeah, there is that extension of yourself into what could be an unknown or is an unknown.
You may be so angry at someone and dislike what they represent, but when you approach them with flowers and a branch of olive tree you then walk in their shoes again. Then, because if you're too pent up with your own stuff, you will never hear them. That's just how I see it.
I think Mickey wanted to get in here for a
Go
minute
ahead,
too.
Mickey.
Yeah, I feel it's trust. You're giving your whole life to someone in effect that you're allowing your soul, bare your soul, your everything in your life
Yeah.
is, you know,
Nice.
happens to you, happens to them, or what happens to them happens to you. You go through hell, you go through happy times, sad times, and you just never know what's around the corner, you know, but at least, you know, you got him or her by your side,
Yeah.
helping you and sticking in there. Main thing is learning to stick through things that aren't to your liking.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Well,
I
that's
think,
all.
I think Rita had something to say.
Go ahead.
For me, I think sometimes what we forget, and this is not that to love ourselves, not in the I am, it's all about me thing, but to learn to love who we are, to forgive ourselves for the things that are shortcomings maybe that we see, and then to move on to grow, because when we when we can forgive ourselves and love ourselves, and we can forgive and love other people. So I think that's, and I don't think that we sometimes teach our young women that they need to do something for somebody else or take care of them or do whatever. You know, I think that that's a real important lesson. It has been as I've grown over these years, and to learn to love myself, forgive myself, so I can give that to others, and you know, grant that grace. That's just my 2 cents.
Lovely. Anyone else?
Yeah. You know, I think the younger people don't know how to battle through differences and learn to get along with differences. You know, it's you see somebody and you think, oh, how could they possibly get along with them? But you always find a way. You know, if you really love someone, you know you can work it out. But to give up, so many people give up so early that it's so sad that people don't realize what they're letting go of.
Yeah, I do think that it helps to have, I mean, it is important, maybe even essential to have a agreed trust between two people. If there isn't that kind of a touch point, then it is very hard to make a relationship last. If you can't get to a point of saying, I'm just going to be vulnerable with you, and I'm trusting that you will be vulnerable back. If that doesn't exist, then it may be impossible.
Then you're talking to a stone statue.
It can sometimes feel that way in the
Yes.
tough times in any relationship.
And it's you know, and we marry stone statues too, by the way, some of us, but not all. My mother and father, I think, were stone statues. They loved each other, but my God, they certainly did have a battleground going. So I couldn't see the love in all of that garbage. And I'm so glad I was able to get away and learn it from others. And Lori was one of the ladies I learned it from. So I'm glad she's here today. It makes me feel comfortable. Well, should we go on to writing?
Yes, let's.
All right. So I wrote some notes again, which I'm always doing. I love to write. I lose words easily when I'm talking, but when I write, I feel it flows a lot easier, what I want to get across to people. So there's different questions that people have asked me in the years. I've been writing since 1995. I bought an old Gateway computer and I said, oh, I can do this. Well, I didn't know the first thing about where the button was or anything to turn the thing on. But I had this story in my mind. Someone said to me, I used to be a storyteller. And so someone said, why don't you write that thing down? You're never going to get it out if you don't write it down. So, well, it took a while. And I wrote the first book was a memoir of marriage, kidneys, and other dark orders. Just happened to have 5,000 copies. Oh, she's so much. So I look at writing. I'm not a person that can tell you where to drop your commas or where to end your sentences or anything like that. What I feel that I can do with you is to inspire you the best I can. And because you all know how to write, we sell ourselves short that we don't have that talent, but we do.
So I have a question about that. When you're looking at something that you're going to write, one of the things I think that is often intimidating is the idea of taking on a project that is bigger than you feel like you can finish. Did you start writing, for example, with the memoir, did you start writing individual stories?
Yes.
Before you started to think about how you're going to put it into a larger framework?
Yeah, I never thought about a book. I really just thought about little stories. It started out with a humorous story about a houseboat trip that my husband booked us on and almost killed us. But we survived it. So I put that together. Well, that was fine. Then I started thinking about the folks in my life. Who would I like to jeopardize or just kind of talk about? And my brother, first of all, when he heard that I was going to start writing about the family, said, just don't write about me, okay? I said, yes, I will. So that was that, and he lost out on that one. But I think if you think too much, you won't get anywhere. You need to just narrow your picture down. First of all, I like to set people up. I want you to envision yourself as an accomplished writer. Envision it. See yourself having finished a story. Let's work on one story. I want you to respect your writing. I don't like when people say, I can't write. Don't put yourself in those areas. So respecting it, maybe I see people sitting at a wonderful little area in their home. Fix it up as your place of business. You treat it like it's an important thing. You don't think it's frivolous. The minute you start degrading it, you will end up doing nothing. So sit there at a place where there's a pot of flowers, a cup of tea, whatever gives you pleasure. Do not sacrifice your little place to any of your relatives that want to bother you. Put a sign on the door and say, stay out unless you're on fire. So the thing that I like about writing is...
Oops, I turned off your screen by mistake, I think.
Oh, I'm off.
Turn your video on.
Oh, I see that.
I don't know how that happened, but nice to have you back again.
It's nice to be back. I've been away for so long.
So you're talking about making a special space that is
yes. Get yourself some good thesaurus, get yourself whatever you feel would give you pleasure. Music, if you need music to write by. Give yourself like a special place. And you say, well, I don't know what to start with. Well, maybe that should be your first sentence. I don't know what to start with. I want to talk about my family, but I don't know what to talk about. So
Well,
let's,
I wonder, have you ever explored the idea of using letter writing as a sort of as a format so that you could imagine telling somebody about it rather than I'm writing a short story?
yeah.
Just
Oh, just writing a letter to someone?
yeah, exactly. Use the letter as the way that you might, I'm going to describe this thing to you.
Why not? There are no wrongs in this thing. Where are the wrongs? You need to expect yourself to be creative. It'll come through. It's amazing what happens. I didn't have a schooling. I went to a writers group. That's what I did. And I was the bottom of the pole, the totem pole there. And all of them were published writers and teachers that had graduated with honors with English. And they told me, they said, you have too many commas. That's what the nuns told me to do. So I stuck all the commas in. Well, you speak in short sentences, you're never going to make it. That's not going to be good. You don't finish your sentences. How are you going to write? So a young man down the couple chairs down said, wait a second, leave her alone. That's their voice. Write the way you write the way you think. Let it come out like you're telling your friend a story about your life. If you sit someone down and say, I need to tell you this, do it that way. It'll just be so exciting and warm, and you can't go wrong. And don't censor yourself. And Florrie is a writer. She understands what it is to write too. I'm sure there are others in this group here that have written. But I know that she probably understands what I'm saying in that regard.
So Florrie, when you're writing, do you try to just keep it going and think I'll edit it later?
Yes, I think that's intimidating to people that think it has to be perfect the first time out. And you just have to realize you're going to write a terrible first draft, but you've got to get it out there and to find out what's good about it. And then you can kind of pick and choose and rewrite. But yeah, don't censor yourself at the beginning, especially. And I agree with you, Venera, about creating a special place for yourself in your home or somewhere. Even just going to the library, to a library carol or something like that. So you take yourself seriously as a writer. We're all writers.
And to add to that, Florrie, one of the tricks that I had for myself a couple of times was I made believe that I had a client across the street who had hired me to write her book. Well, as I went to work, I couldn't let her down. I'm been hired. So I gave myself a little bit of a jab on that one, having to fill in the blanks of it.
That's good. Did you end up
Yeah.
then you could end up suing her for non-payment?
There you go. I hadn't thought of that. Now I have to go collect it. And use humor. Whatever you do, use humor, even though it may be a tragic moment, because the tragedy is over. If you can look at it and see the heartbreak of it, then I'm not saying that you should be a very dramatic piece, you need to give it its right. It was a terrible moment. So that's what you experienced. But also give it some levity in your writings and dialogue. You can get your characters to talk. It just makes for quick writing. It's easy. Let me see, what else have I forgotten? Oh, I have different tricks. I put together a binder whenever I start to write anything of any worth. The binder, for instance, when I wrote my memoir, I made a binder. I don't think you can see, but it has a place to put the year that you were born, and then I'll put a year for every page that you have. And every time you think of what happened in that year, write it down. Write a little blurb. Oh, that was the year that we got stuck in the Donner Pass. Oh boy. So
Never lived that one down.
it was a very hungry time. So
But your point being, collect scraps.
all the time, keep that little book going. All your little notes. I also have what I borrowed from some poor slob that worked very hard at putting this together. And it's a character picture. For instance, you would look at yourself and you say, okay, I'm going to talk about my glasses, my nose, my dumb hat, my dumb clothes. Okay, but always write this stuff down about the character. Does he have any tics? Does he walk kind of different? What do you notice about it? This will help you enormously when you're going through your work. Any questions?
I'm guessing that would apply as well in a memoir. It might make sense for you to do that, even though you
Yes.
think, oh, I know my brother.
Yeah.
But writing it down would make it so that you would sort of objectify some of those things that.
Yeah. Here you got. Let me read quick. You might want to talk about after you mentioned their physical self. Maybe their teeth are crooked, or the shape of their face, their neck may be wrinkled and scrawnier and stuff like that.
Your video stopped again, Venera.
Oh, it's me that did that.
You're going incognito.
Well,
we
I
go.
know I don't know why. It's because I do stupid things with my.
It's technology. It's okay.
I understand.
It's just like that computer that you were using when you started out.
I hate that computer. It has. So you also want to put in there like their social class, maybe educational backgrounds, or work experience, value system. Find out. And don't forget to bring those little things out when you're writing the surroundings. I'm making sense to everybody, I hope.
Yes, you're making sense. Absolutely.
Good. So anyway, so then you have personal information you could write down. I have a thing that I like to do with pictures. When you take pictures of your family, have them available when you're writing about them. Look at their pictures. Watch who's looking at what and who's sneering at somebody else. Or you would be surprised what goes on in a family that is big and wild.
And that you might not sort of be aware of unless you
Yeah.
look at it sort of almost like a third person, like a, you know, objective person away from the family.
Yeah, you think it's very interesting. If you're writing fiction, your characters are really interesting. I loved fiction. I just didn't think I was going to. I was afraid of it, thinking, oh my goodness, I could get lost here. But what happens is when you have that energy going with writing a story about, say I'm writing a story about Lawrence, and I'm thinking about what he's doing in this story. And all of a sudden, Lawrence takes on a place of his own, and he starts dictating to the author. It's the strangest feeling on earth, but that's what happens because this characters become very strong, and then you know you've got something. There are different techniques about writing. Is anything there? I once anyway. Well, do I have it? Well,
It's somewhere
yeah,
on that table.
it's somewhere. By the way, this is another technique. See, it's a circle.
Yep.
Okay, in that circle, you write in there. I have copies of this thing. If anybody ever needs them, I can get them to you. I can give them to read, and I can. And
Great.
we can-
Yeah,
we
that
can
was
run
Sanaa was
off.
asking about that earlier. So
Yes. And what it is there are the words happy, surprise, fear, anger, disgust, and sad. So what happens is as the circle gets outward and you start giving extra words that are related to those words. And if you write that out, you don't need to run to your dictionary every few minutes to see what's another word for sad. Guilty, abandoned, despair, depressed, lonely, bored, apathetic. And so you understand what I'm saying. I'll give that to you. And also I think I could give you the character pieces also, and that maybe people can run them off if they like. Oh, let me just read a little bit that I wrote, since it is Valentine's Day. And this is called Goo Goo Eyes. You ever heard of those words, goo goo? I've always enjoyed it. This country loved it when I was young. Europe has refined this wonderful gift, and it still thrives in many areas of the world. So why have we given up on this exciting tool for the ego? At the risk of shaking up the feminist gods, let me state here I have strong favorable understanding of their issues and agree we have a way to go in many arenas. But this one, I think we threw out the shampoo bottle with washing that man right out of my hair. What am I talking about? Why, flirting, of course. Have you noticed how puritanical and careful we have all become? There just ain't no fun having. I have noticed how, Mo, my parents, I'm sorry, my eyes are a little squeamish. My parents are Italian immigrants, but I was born in the US, so I had a good taste of the art of flirting. What is so fantastic is that it is ageless. We can take it to our deathbed. It doesn't require great learning, and it is forgiving. The only mistakes that I see that are made is when we sexualize instead of sensualize the interaction. We don't appear to understand the difference. A life without flirting is like a sandwich without the filling. So I could go on, but I won't, because that's just a little thing. I
Yes,
felt like
be
writing.
careful because it's lunchtime, you know.
Oh, that's true. Well, make sure you have a filling in that sandwich. My mother sent me to school with a spaghetti sandwich one time.
How did that go?
Well, I lost a lot of friends that day, and I don't know that I ever spoke to my mother as the same language.
Way again.
Spaghetti sandwich. Can you believe that?
Well, it sounds like a good idea at home. It's you got plenty of carbs there.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a lot to learn in life, isn't there? And one of them is being born to immigrants. That's good.
That's good. And I do think that one of the things, what you were saying about love is also true of writing, that it gives us an opportunity to get to know ourselves better.
All the therapy in the world that I had in my life never came close to what that memoir did for me. I couldn't lie to myself anymore after I wrote it, because I cried plenty in the book. It took 8 years to write it, but I'm not sorry I did it. It was the best thing I could have done. I wish I could get some questions from you all.
Questions or comments, maybe if you can share something about your own musings, even if they aren't full-blown memoirs. I think that we have all had experiences trying to write or writing for other people.
Yeah.
Anybody have a comment they'd like to throw out here? Yes, Lawrence.
Well, I'm currently reading a biography of John Steinbeck, and he talks about the struggles he had with writing. But once he created a character, that character, it takes a life of its own in his mind, and he's able to identify with that character. And I think some of the passion that Venera is explaining to us is just having an open mind and letting things happen, and they will come forth. And I want to first of all apologize for Bonnie. Bonnie said she had to leave. She has an appointment this afternoon, but she's going to watch your show, the recording of it. And lastly, I just want to thank Venera for sharing her passion. She's an inspiration to all of us, I think. And I'm looking forward to when we start meeting in person again.
Hear, hear. I hope that's very
Thank you,
soon.
Larry. Very nice.
Well, we love you. It's Valentine's Day. We love you today. We love you every day.
Yeah.
Hear, hear.
I'll pay you later, Larry. Okay.
Thank you.
So, anyone else?
I never realized that when you write, sometimes when I'm even composing an email, just an everyday email to someone, how many times I will rewrite it. And
Yes. Isn't that
it
interesting?
drives me crazy because it's like I'm satisfied with hitting that go button. So is that normal?
Yes,
You know,
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It is very normal and very much a part of our human nature. We need perfection in order for us to get out the door.
I
Uh,
realize.
Yeah. Oh, here. Let me tell you about what it makes to be a good writer. Good writing connects things. Good writing tells a story that the reader can relate to. Too often, writers only judge themselves against other writers. Those with better vocabularies and slicker prose seem, by all technical accounts, to be the best of the group. Good writing is about something important, not necessarily something important in the grand scheme of things, but something either the audience already cares about or something the author makes them care about. For instance, dearest Pancake, have I told you lately I love you? Love always what? It's an emotion. It comes and grabs you. And I put Willie Nelson on the radio, and I'm writing about my mother who was distant. What did I put on? I put Angels Flying Too Close to the Ground. It described her so well, I couldn't have written it better. His words were my mother. So you will hear things in your writing. You will keep your ears open differently. Once you start writing, when you start reading books, you will never read the same way, because you then start looking at the author of that book and see what part that person played inside those people. It says here, what makes a person a good writer? Well, you connect things. Good writing tells a story that the reader can relate to. Too often, writers only judge themselves against other. Oh, I already read you that, didn't I? Because that's what I do.
Well, maybe you want to make sure we got it.
Thank you. You have bailed me out of a lot of stuff, you know that.
Well, I have a question about this about writing fiction.
Yeah.
Lawrence was talking a little bit about this idea of getting to know the character and then having the character lead you.
Yes.
And balancing that against obviously the sort of narrative or plot-driven challenge of thinking about where you want to go with the story. I wonder how, when you were writing fiction, you let the characters sort of write the story and you tried to help them tell it better, or
Right.
you had an idea before you began and you asked them to please play in this playground.
You know, I write titles first. They sound strange. I write titles first. And let me tell you a little history on what happened. I found this article in Seattle Times about these 3 elderly women that died holding hands around their stove in the kitchen. They were back east in the mining town of Pennsylvania. And I was taken by this. Oh my goodness. How does that happen? How did they die? I took it. I didn't want to know anything about the story. I only read the article. There was this sheriff who was talking about the 3 people. And they evidently died by, what do they call that? When the air goes out of their lives.
Deflation?
Asphyxiation.
Suffocation.
Well, something to that effect, but it was like an atmospheric thing. And I just can't come up with it.
Carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so these were 3 sisters. I put a whole new thing on them. Set them back about 25 years. And I started making believe I knew these people. I wrote about them. I never spoke in this story. I decided that I wouldn't. I'd only describe myself. I wanted to see how these women lived. And I gave them that information by writing a diary that one of the sisters write in a diary. So she told us about the family. Unless you read it, it's too wordy and too much. But it's, yes, I did have an understanding. I wanted to make a story that was connected to my own life. I wasn't sure how it would come out, but it started moving in a funny area. People were dying, people were living, people were happy, people were crazy. And the sheriff had one thing. He was interviewed and said, well, what happened to them? The interview said, well, they was holding hands. That was the name of the book. From there, you keep going.
So that's kind of interesting. Take something that is sort of
An article.
right, that is, and then pull it back and let it go.
Let it
I'm
go.
reading Maggie O'Farrell's Hamnet right now, almost
Oh.
done with it. And of course, there are these very few facts about Shakespeare's life. And from those facts, she's allowing herself to write a whole atmosphere, like in-depth experience of the family inside and out, which is, you know, she has permission because who's going to argue with her?
That's right. That's, I do have another suggestion. One of the things that I found good, and we did that in the memoir class that I was running, was find a theme for your book. And the theme that I picked for my memoir was love. How it was given, how it was taken away, how it was misused. Just those were the stories. And with my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law used to say she was bitter all the time. Well, once you took a look at her little story, I think I'd be bitter too, you know? And I used to argue with my mother-in-law because she would say that about her. I said, Mom, stop it. Stop calling your daughter that. Stop saying that about her. Anyway, think about these things.
Well, I want to thank you very much for giving us this hour. And as you said, you're willing to share the some of the sort of templates and formats that you've used that have been helpful. So if you're interested, please call the Senior Center. Venera does almost every month does a conversation group called Wise Folks, and I invite you to keep an eye on that when we do it in person. It's Tuesdays at 1 at the center once a month or so. Right now we're doing them on Zoom, but just keep an eye out. And then we have ad hoc kind of loose writing group called Write On that is meeting on Zoom at 11 o'clock every Tuesday. So if you have something you'd like to share, let us know. We'll connect you with somebody who can give you some feedback.
And I want to say thank you for everything you've always done for me. And also, thank you all for joining me today. If there's anything that I can help with, I'd be glad to hear from you. And I would be more than helpful to you.